Yo, what up? What up? I think everyone can hear me. Cool. Um, I didn't even know if I wanted to do this stream. I'm not gonna lie. I got spoiled on one of the big reveals this chapter. I was pretty pissed about it. Not gonna lie. Uh, I got spoiled by like social media accounts that don't even post like One Piece spoilers or anything because I went through and weeded them all out. So I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty pissed when I got spoiled, and it's a huge reveal, and so I'm pretty salty about it. Not gonna lie, um, but you know what? It is what it is. Um, I'm just gonna need to do a better job of just fucking ignoring social media and not going on when it comes closer to these chapters, especially with it being just like this phenomenon that even people who don't actually like enjoy this stuff, um I need to make sure that they aren't the fucking people who are spoiling me, um especially when we get close to the end. It's gonna be really hard. I'm probably gonna have to just take a complete break. um but yeah, so I'm ready to jump into this chapter. I had a really great stream with NYC Anime Nerd. So if you're not following him, go follow him. We came up with a pretty interesting theory of why Harold went to Wano um, last chapter. So it's gonna be. It was pretty interesting. I'm probably gonna write it out a little bit and kind of refine it. Um, so it's gonna be very interesting. Um, Yo, what is up? How do you say your name? Ryan? New here. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming through. Um, this chapter is gonna be a banger from what I've heard, and I got spoiled on one thing, but hopefully there's a bunch of other stuff in this. And I'm the thing that I got spoiled on is big, but I'm reading the official translation, so we'll get better clarity, and then on top of that, we will also have lots of theories to go over depending on how the character is shown. Um, but since you're new here, and anybody else that is watching after the fact, I read the chapter page by page, and I go, and when theories spawn and talking points, I just kind of go over it. But I love having conversation with people. With people. Sorry. Jeez. Ugh. Um, the chapter will be right down. Oh my god, I'm terrible at this. Right down in this corner if you want to follow along with where I am at. So let's jump into it. All right, so we got 1154. Can't even die. Hmm. And it says Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage. Go pay your respects at the grave of the hero born in the West Blue and raised in Ringo. Born in the West Blue and raised in Ringo. That's interesting. I wonder. Are we gonna get a reveal? Because this is where all the swords are, and one of the like people. Hmm. One of the people with all the swords that was laid to rest there was Shusui and Ryuma. So I wonder if this is going to tell us that Ryuma's there, or am I forgetting something? I might be forgetting something. So let's keep it rocking. Does this type of stream make sense? Yes and no. Um, The cover story makes sense because Yamato wants to be free like Odin, and Odin traveled around all of Wano before heading out to sea to join the Pirate King's crew. So, to me, it seems as though uh, they are kind of going around and doing exactly what Odin did before they go join the Straw Hats. So, it kind of makes sense. There's little cool things that are happening here and there, like a page one and Alti joining Yamato on her pilgrimage. That's very interesting because the first two people that joined Odin were Kinemon and Denjiro, so they would be like the Kinemon and Denjiro of Yamato's pilgrimage. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. So let's jump into this. It says 63 years ago. Oh, this is interesting. Um, Yo, what's up, Miguel? Um, 63 years ago, Chief Yorul, the partner of Chief Yarul, oldest of the giants today, Beard Hill, was killed. By a young girl. The girl, a human, half destroyed an entire village. Her name was Charlotte Linlin, and she would later be known as Big Mom, Emperor of the Sea. Miguel says, well, considering the cover story before Jinbei joined, he had a cover story where he did interesting random things too. Yeah, exactly. Like I said last time, like I think that we got really spoiled um when we got to see like the Kuzan and like Germa 66 like Whole Cake Island cover story, because that was like interesting information that was happening at that same time, and it actually made the story more interesting because we knew that that was happening in the time when we were in Wano and Egghead. Like, so I don't know. It says, as it happened in that very same year, Elbaf was afflicted by disaster after disaster. First, gales and cold snaps that affected their crops, and poor fishing hauls as a result of the extreme weather. That brought this normally fertile land to the brink of starvation. Enel story is my favorite. Yeah, and the Enel cover story is immaculate. It's so good. It still has so many unanswered questions. What I like to tell people about this Yamato cover story is it might get good, it might not, and it might just have more implications for things later. Like I remember when I was reading and we got the Ace cover story where he like helped the milkmaid, and it was like, oh, okay, like it's no big deal, it's just like him helping a milkmaid, and we were just like, oh, whatever, it's just a cover story. Oda does this, and it was before we really had any like super interesting cover stories. But then that milkmaid was the same one that the revolutionaries inspired to fight back against Peachbeard, and showed us that they liberated the Lucia. Then we also got the milkmaid and all of them surviving what we believe is Uranus and the destruction of Lucia. And we saw the milkmaid again when she joined, along with the refugees from Lucia, the Revolutionary Army. So like it's something that had such an not an insane payoff, but a payoff later nonetheless. So like when people are like, "Oh, this cover story is kind of whack," it might be for that time. We don't know if it'll get better over time, so we'll just have to wait and see. So they were hit with a bunch of terrible stuff. Got it. Okay. Well, page 3. And it says, oh, it's Estrid or whatever her name is. You see, it's because of the child. The kingdom is now under its curse because you didn't kill it like I told you. And the giant's like, but surely that's a coincidence. And she like looks at it, and all of a sudden it like pushes something and breaks something. And it's like, ah, it's looking at me. And it says, kick it out. Don't let that monster near me ever again. And Loki, man, Loki's. This is terrible. I fucking hate this lady. I, I'm glad that she apparently dies in this story. Um, and it says, Prince Loki, you mustn't approach your mother's chambers. And he's just crying. Yeah, Loki looks so adorable. And it says, put out the beast's eyes, or this country is ruined. It's all under a curse. Terrible. And it says, wow, I'm hungry. I'm sorry, sweetie. That was the last of the bread we had. It says, should we go raiding? It would be easy to take from the humans. And it says, that's a part of Elbaf's history, isn't it? Don't be a fool. Elbaf has always fought with pride. And it says, ha, that's just a story we tell ourselves. And then like all these giants are getting ready. And it says, the Huntsman village is attacking us. What? Them? They've taken out the other villages too. Grab your weapons. Don't let them pillage us. And it says at this time Elbaf had little internal cohesion and cooperation. Civil wars were not uncommon. With the desperate food situation, the fighting worse and only grew worse, and many died. The country was plunged into chaos, and over time, and looks like someone, like a giant that says, from what I heard, that prince at the castle is accursed. And it says, the people grew sick within their hearts. And someone said, hang on. And it was Haruden. It's like, hey, Haruden, your brother has put a curse on this land. He's trying to kill it. And he's like, huh? He's like, you're his brother, so you must be sacrificed. What the fuck? No wonder Harden has like a grudge. And it says, huh? Why? My son's the sweetest, cutest boy in the world. And that means he's got to live to be the oldest boy in the world. And Ida um, gets grabbed. And the dude's like, shut up, Ida. You had no right to seduce Harold like that, outsider. And it says, you shut up. Love has no borders. And Harden says, don't touch my mom. And then there's like a fist that cocks back. And it's King Harold. And it says, don't make me pound you. Whoa, pause. He already did that to the girl. This is King Harold. And Harden says, Daddy. And Ida's like, Harold. And it says, why do you turn on one another, my brethren? And it says, Your Majesty. All right, there's a double spread. I gotta make it bigger. It says, Your Majesty. Okay, okay. I'll tell you what, King Harold's starting to look like Kaido more. And then it says, I'm trying to. It says, I went at once to the countries with which we have ties, and without a single word, they went hold on, hold on. I don't know where to begin here. In the same breath that I heard about the birth of Loki, I learned that my kingdom was suffering from starvation. I went at once to the countries with which we have ties, and without a single word, they went and loaded up their ships with massive piles of food. Each human has but a tiny body, but they banded together, country after country, and brought enough food to fill our giant bellies. Let us be grateful for their aid. And it says, "We're here, Harold. Hey, how do we dock at this island?" It says, "Yeah, it's enormous. Let us savor the food they've brought us." It says, "And when they in turn need our help, let us give it freely. The world we've lived in so much smaller than the real thing." Damn. That's really cool. Like that's an amazing lesson. Like, don't get me wrong. I joke about King Harold actually being a dirtbag and stuff like that. And that was kind of a misdirect, I think, that uh, Oda wanted to do. And so, this is, him really showing, like, hey, if we treat the world with kindness, the world will treat us back. So I really like that page. Let's go back to one page. It says, shortly before Harold's return, Queen Estrid passed away, and to her dying breath, she spitefully blamed the kingdom's ills on the curse of Loki, her son. Oh, Harold's actually crying. He spent like zero time with her. He like literally knocked her up and left. That's crazy. Um, he solved the problem with unity instead of force. 100%. 100%. Yeah. It's just going to show you like there is kindness in the world, and like he was shown that kindness by Ida, and then so he learned from that how to have empathy, and realize that the whole thing with like Ace and all these other people, like the mysteries, and just because you're born a certain way or born to a certain family or whatever does not mean that you deserve to have any sort of preconceived notions about yourself. Um, it says, naturally, the people believed that the curse was responsible for her death. And Harold lifts up Loki and says, "Loki, my son." And says, "He was born with an affliction of the eyes, I'm afraid, though he can see, I assure you." And Harold says, the poor lad. And says, "Can you smile? I suppose not after losing your mother." And it says, "At just a few months old, Loki abandoned any hope for love. He's got a lot of bruises." And uh, they said, well, they, oh, so like he was probably beaten. Cool. That sucks. It says, meanwhile, Harold's diplomatic ties paid off, and Elbaf survived its long winter. Um, and so he starts talking. He's like, branch route. It's like, that's right. It will. It says branch route one. It's like, that's right. It will promote friendship and trade between villages. Um, and it says, but between rebuilding the shattered country and his many foreign trips, Harold was tremendously busy. And like one giant is behind Loki and says, "Horrid thing." It says, and so the care of Loki fell to his regent Estrid's older brother. So, piece of shit. That's gonna be great. And let's see, here, Haruden. It's dangerous down here. This is the underworld. It says, No, the sea separates us from the underworld. The beast can't reach us. Uh, and Ida says, "That's so sweet of you to worry about me, though." And she like pinches his cheeks and says, "You're going to do your warrior training with Elbow in the Western Village, right? I'll stop by on my way home." And it says, "Fishermen, the shipwrecked pirates, all come here. All comers are welcome here. This is Ida's bar. I just hope it helps Harold somehow." Damn. This is what I'm saying, dude. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, how can you not want just like, I don't know if those are like the four elders that he's talking to at that table, but bro, I'll tell you what, I would be like, yo, I tried doing things your way. My my wife gave birth to our son and then cursed him basically and was a terrible person and then died, and the one that I wanted to marry is trying to do nothing but help me. So like I'm going to take her as my wife. Like y'all can pound sand. It says 56 years ago, Yarul's home, Elbaf. It says, "So you were there for the incident at the Reverie Herald?" It says, "Yes, I asked a fellow royal to help me slip inside as a soldier, but in the end, the council would not hear me out." And it says, "If not for all the uproar about that murder, I might have been imprisoned." And Yarul says, "If you were lucky, you'd only be in chains. That was reckless of you. Say, have you ever heard of the Galil Galila band?" Galila band. Hmm. Yeah, I know he did the formality for his family, but it's just like if you're the king, I don't know. If you were able to change the way that Elbaf runs as far as, having uh, being more trade oriented and changing the narrative about being savages and all this other stuff, you think you could change like a small rule of having an outsider be your wife. And so I don't know how do you say that, Galila band. And it says that group of hardy giant shipwrights, hammer wielding warriors, right? I thought they were a myth. And it says, no, they most certainly existed. They traveled to distant shores and sent a letter back to Elbaf from afar. It said, "We have all been taken prisoner." Can you believe that? Who could possibly capture 100 strong company of our kind with ancient giants among them to boot? Interesting. This is the first I think that we've been hearing about this. It says, "You think the world government did that?" And Yoro said, "It's clear that we had a great enemy at some point in the distant past, but all of that history was sunk under the sea one day. My point is, your failure to win them over might not be your fault." And it says, "Some ancient enmity." I've heard stories on the wind about an army of giants put on ice and hidden somewhere. In any case, never forget that we have long been a threat to the rest of the world. And Harold says, "Yes, I'm aware." Also, the way his eyebrows flare out also looks like Kaido. But I know what the fuck they're talking about here. When it says, "I've heard stories of an army of giants put on ice and hidden somewhere," we saw that. It was all the way back in Punk Hazard. When they went into that ice chamber, they saw all of the people frozen. And that's probably where that army of giants is. I'd bet money on it. That's crazy. That's really fucking crazy that they're referencing that. So crazy. Um, it says, "Oh, Prince Loki, killer of my beloved sister." That's dark. Mind blown. Yeah, dude. That's crazy. Cause like when all those kids ran into that one ice chamber before they left, you saw all of them. They were frozen on the ground, they were frozen on the ceiling, they were frozen in the walls. You saw them and they were big as fuck. Which would make sense that Caesar would want them there because if he was able to take some of their DNA and study it and kind of go and be like, that would be a key to his gigantification of those children. So that is insane. That is an insane revelation, and it's so crazy that we're bringing it up. And so you have Estrid's brother, who's a piece of shit, say, "Let's see what rotten scraps shall I feed you today." And then he gets a little bit older. He's like, "Oh no, the lucky horse is dead." It's so funny. And it says, "Oh no, the regent is dead down in the underworld." And it says 48 years ago, Harold built 8 branch routes in Elbaf, unifying the country and creating a vibrant trade between villages. And it says, "My dream is for us to be connected to every country and for giant kind to be able to live all across the world." And everyone's like, "You're the best King Harold. I can scarcely remember how he used to be. Harold is now a king for the ages." And it says, "Why do you look so why do you look so pleased, Haruden? You're not the king's real son. Loki is our only prince." What a dick. That's very true too. It came to my mind that the giant ancestors might be the builders of the Noah ship. Just think of the size. Yeah, I mean that's very possible. They talked about the ancient shipwrights at Water 7 as well. They might have also built Water 7. Cuz like Water 7 is just like a city on top of a city, but the original city underneath it and what would become Water 7, or at least the platform in which they do it, could have been the ancient giants as well. So, very interesting. And someone says, "You're just a bastard." And it says, "Look how King Harold has gone on another of his trips, and you know what that means. Bolt your doors, bring the children indoors." And it says, "Come on, boys, destroy them. This is Elbaf, land of the mighty. The weak don't deserve to live." And it looks like Loki brought all of the beasts up from the underworld. And it says, "Loki, meanwhile, caused harm and destruction." Hold on, there's someone at my front door. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Oh, forgot my hat. All right. So Harold went and decided that he was going to go on all these trips and leave Loki. And as soon as he left, Loki was like, time to run them ones. It says, caused harm and destruction and mocked those who ran away from him. Man, he is a monster. Then all of a sudden, someone's like, hey, Loki. It says, don't mess up the village Dad worked so hard to rebuild. And it says, huh? He's not, he's my dad, not yours. Oof. And it says, that guy might get a lot of respect, but he tries to be friends with those tiny little bug humans. It's so stupid. And it's Howardin says, you have to see everyone at the same eye level. Don't think you're special just because you're big. And Loki says, I'm special because I'm the prince. Don't ever talk back to me again, Shrimp. He just punches him in the face. Damn. And one of them comes over, Haruden, and it says, stay away, Gerd, or Loki will think you're friends with him. And then he'll hit us. And it says, we are friends with him, dummy. And it says, Haruden, are you okay? Quick, help him. And he's like, huh? He looks pissed. And he is laughing with his tongue out. Says, little creep, you're a loser, Harden. Look at you, weaklings licking each other's wounds. The son of a mother with tainted blood. And it says, Your Highness, that's enough. He is the king's son as well. He's a prince. And it says, don't call him a prince. And he just starts mollywopping them too. And it says, but no matter how much he harmed and destroyed, Loki could never fill the hole at the center of his being. And so he jumped off of the... Oh my God. Oh my God. He jumped off of the sun realm and landed in the underworld and started coughing, like he started bleeding, and it says, I can't even die. And he's crying. Oh my God. You know, those are who are hurting tend to hurt people the most. Oh shit, here we go. And all of a sudden a mountain gets sliced up and it says, what's with this island? Where do you get inland? And all these animals start yelling. And Loki looks over at him and he says, ah, there we go. Look, it's a giant kid. So this must be Elbaf. And we see Shiki smoking a cigar and says, Jihaha, this one looks positively demonic. And Whitebeard says, it seems too big even for a giant. Is he crying? And it says, all right, Brat, you're going to say yes twice because that's the answer I want from these questions. It says, question 1, is this Elbaf Land of Giants? Question 2, is Harold here? And it says, this man whom Harold met at the Reverie 8 years earlier killed a Navy headquarters admiral and fled. Now the government has placed a heavy bounty on his head. And it looks like we got Whitebeard, we got Stussy, we got Shiki, and we got Rox D. Zebek. And it says, future captain of the Rocks Pirates, father of Blackbeard. Oh, so this is what I was spoiled on, was the look of him. People are starting to speculate that he has the Ope Ope no Mi, because he's making he's like this, which is like how Law does shambles. And not to mention the way he sliced um this mountain is very interesting too. Very interesting. It's also interesting because it says Rocks D Z and then Beck. So very interesting. Also, the fact that Shiki looks like he's wearing Wano's clothes. Very much looks like Shiki's wearing Wano's clothes. So I wonder if he did have a connection to Wano. Damn, and that's the end. Okay. Okay. Man, this is good. I don't see it's very interesting. Harold talks about how there was a murder there. So it looks like says this man whom Harold met at the Reverie 8 years ago killed the Navy headquarters admiral and fled. I want to know what the bounty on his head is, one, but also I'm very interested to know what's happening here. Oh man, what a chapter. If it wouldn't have been spoiled for me, this would have went even crazier. Low key. But now I want to see something. So let me see here. I gotta see this end right here. Okay. Says Harold spotted this particular man 8 years ago. He single-handedly killed the Navy HQ admiral and vanished without a trace. This feat earned him a massive bounty and the government's ire. Okay, okay. So the translations weren't very far off because I wasn't sure what we were gonna get from the fan versus the legit. But no, this is a very interesting development. I mean, obviously, he straight up said it. father of Blackbeard. That's crazy. This has all sorts of implications, but to just go through it, we'll start at the top, and then I'll give my rating for the chapter. Um, so the cover story is kind of but I'm interested to see where it's going. Like I said before, the cover story isn't necessarily bad; it's just not really good. Um, so the fact that we're getting all this lore about Elbaf is very interesting. Um, the land falling into a famine and stuff like that. Uh, you know, that sucks. But again, the only reason they made it out of that famine was because of King Harold. And I just feel really bad for Loki. I'm glad that Esther died, but then it sucks because her brother's even worse somehow. Um, and baby Loki is adorable. Um, the fact that they were busy, they were going to have a civil war over it, and then Harden almost got clipped, and Ida. Um, but King Harold just destroyed that dude, um, and brought all the food with him to save the day. That was super awesome. Then the queen died, and just like baby Loki's just unable to smile. It makes sense there was a missing name from the original admiral naming scheme since Rox killed an admiral. Yeah. Yeah, because it was what? Red dog, yellow monkey, blue pheasant, or something like that. And then there was one other that was supposed to be. Um, the fact that they said like that he was born with a condition that affects his eyes, but he can he can still see. Um, and like King Harold's just like, he's like, well, you can't even smile, you know. The fact that Ida made this bar, you know, where pirates and giants and everyone can come in. Um, it might be the bar that we saw Shanks and Dorian Broggy catching up at in the when they destroyed Kid. So that's interesting. I'll have to go back and look at that to see if it looks like Ida's the server there or something. So, um, um, the fact that these these giants may be frozen in ice somewhere, like the Galilea band, which is interesting because like Galilea band or Galila um, is a very interesting thing because yeah, that's they got to be the shipwrights from Order 7, the ancient shipwrights, because like the Galilea band turns into Galila, and that's very interesting. Um, and then it says the travel distance. It is said we have been taken prisoner, blah blah blah. But then someone said, where is it? I've heard stories about an army of giants put on ice and hidden somewhere. In any case, never forget that we have long been a threat to the rest of the world. So, the fact that we know where those giants are, we know that whole thing is kind of fucking nuts. Um, and just like Loki taking his anger and frustration out on everyone for being weak because like they're supposed to be strong and all that shit. Like, but then him being so upset because he jumps off the sun realm like he was thrown um from his mom, and he's like, I can't even die, like, and then just obviously this last panel with Rock's final face card reveal as well. Like the craziest part is Oda didn't have to tell us that he was Blackbeard's father. We would have drawn that assumption, but then again, I guess there's people that probably would have been like, "No, he just looks like him." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, um, but no, this is interesting, very interesting. Um, Rox Diesebek. Very interesting. Yeah, so I mean, this chapter was really good. I wish I didn't get spoiled because this ending would have been hit crazy hard. But it's very interesting uh, that we got this. I wonder why that is. Hmm. I mean, it's the end game. It makes sense to kind of reveal it now, but very crazy, very crazy. So, like I said, I feel like the shock factor of this moment got ruined for me, which sucks because like I was super hyped to see what Rocks looked like, and everyone had to go and ruin it. But this is still a crazy reveal. The fact that he might have Law's fruit, the fact that he's Blackbeard's uh, father, which means that like Whitebeard had to have known that Teach was his son. Like they look so much alike. And like I get it, maybe Blackbeard has more over the years gotten, you know, uh more looked more like him, and maybe like he didn't really look like him at that time. But I wonder if he fucking knew. Because then it's like Whitebeard is taking in all of his uh enemies' kids. He took in Ace. He took in Teach. You know, just crazy. This is a lot of implications for future stuff that's gonna be crazy. I am very much interested in the Frozen Giants, the Galila stuff, and everything. Um, it's a shame we didn't get to see Harold ride in on his fucking eight-legged horse or whatever. Um, But yeah, no, this is very interesting. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go back and see if like Ida um was in that bar when they were serving Shanks. So very interesting. Overall, I think this chapter is like an 8 out of 10. Had a lot of good information, had a lot of good backstory stuff. We learned how Harold had talked to the world government, and this is what I think is going to happen, because they're talking about like they have some ancient anonymity, and they have some hatred towards them, and so uh, they I wonder if that's why Harold rips out his horns as like a sign of like we move past the past type thing, and that's how he becomes part of one of the holy knights. It says Loki saying he can't die. Do we think it's because he's really strong or because he has some special power? In present time, Gets said it would take months for him to recover after Shamrock, but he's sitting up and even ready to fight. Maybe. I mean, I think it's possible. Um, it's very possible that he has some sort of ancient healing factor or something like that. I mean, even when he was yeeted as a child off of the Sun Realm, he, you know, he healed after, killing a bear and somehow crawled back up. So it's very possible that Loki has some sort of, ancient healing factor that just makes him, tougher. I don't think that it's so much that he can't die, but I think that it's so much that he just is able to bounce back so much faster. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here, and I don't want my distraction, from uh, being he was literally a day old too. Yeah. Um, I mean, he was obviously meant to be super durable because he's a giant, he's an ancient giant, and he's like King Harold's blood. Like he's built different, literally. Um, um, Someone says Nepo piece strikes again. And it says amazing backstory. Well, what the fuck teaches a Nepo baby? And man, poor Loki. Listen, the fact that people are saying like Cheech is a nepo baby, yes, he is. He comes from fucking strong roots. So does our main character. He got Garp and he got Dragon. It's but it's also not so much who you come from either. You know, look at Whitebeard. We don't know, who he comes from. You know, he might be a buccaneer. You know, we know that Zoro's lineage is like, the Shimotsuki, and Ryumo is a Shimotsuki. Like, but it doesn't so much matter where you come from most of the time. Now, granted, I mean, is it a motivating factor? And does it help to have good genetics? Of course. But that's just like anything. There are people who, like Usain Bolt's dad doesn't, isn't the fastest runner, and he just, did what he did. People are just built differently and stuff like that. I don't think that this is like anything to be salty over. um if anything, Teach just wants revenge now for what the government did to his dad, or he wants to fulfill his dad's dream, or he might even, because he doesn't really know his dad, he might just want to fulfill his own dream, or what he thought was his dad's dream. So it's very interesting. This chapter is really good. I'm just salty because I got spoiled on it. But this chapter's easily an 8 out of 10. So if I wouldn't have got spoiled, it probably would be like a 9.5 out of 10. But I think the thing that's very interesting is the fact that Blackbeard or Zebek might have had the Ope Ope no Mi. That's probably the craziest thing. Not to mention just like his lineage, the way his hair is streaked with black and whatever other color that might be. Because we don't know. Once we get the official coloring, it'll be interesting. Um, so, yeah, well, that I think is all that I have. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. Um, and this was a really great chapter, and I'm super excited for the next chapter because I don't believe that there is a break week. I will be, however, on a work trip, so I'm not sure when I will get to it, but I will get to it eventually. Um, But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming through. Miguel, Orion, thank you so much. SBU, thank you so much for coming through. Love talking to you. W Stream, I'm subbing up. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Please, if you can, like the video, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And in my link tree, I also have a TikTok and Instagram where I'm posting things as well, like live reactions that I can't post here on YouTube for copyright. But thank you guys so much for coming through. I really appreciate it. And I will be back here when the next chapter drops in some form or fashion. Like I said, I will be away on work, but I'll try my best. Um, but yeah, thank you guys so much. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I can't wait till next time. Um, Thank you guys as always. And I say this every time: One Piece is better as a conversation. I love having that conversation with you guys. I love having dialogue, talking to other One Piece fans. It makes me, it's my favorite thing to do. So, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time.